Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the Great Hall, looking up at 12 different alien faces staring down at him. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with walls that seemed to go up forever. Each council member sat on a floating platform that glowed with soft light. Jake had been to this place before, but never as a prisoner. The human captain wore his blue uniform, even though they had taken away his rank badges. His hands were not tied, but energy fields around his wrists made sure he could not move them much. Jake did not seem worried. In fact, he looked around the room like a tourist seeing something interesting for the first time. Chancellor ZYXTHRA spoke first. She was made of living crystal that changed colors when she talked. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Captain Jake Morrison of the human species, you stand before this council charged with serious crimes against galactic law. Jake nodded. Yes, ma'am. I understand that. You have ignored our warnings about the restricted sectors. You have broken quarantine rules on 17 different worlds. You have changed the environment of planets without permission from their governments. The crystal being's colors shifted to angry red. Your species thinks it can do whatever it wants in our galaxy. Well, Jake said with a small smile, we do like to explore. A creature that looked like a giant spider, wearing robes, spoke next. Explore? You call destroying 3 research stations exploring. Hey, now. Jake held up one finger. Those stations were built on unstable ground. I told your people they needed to move them. When they did not listen, I moved the equipment to safe places before the ground collapsed. I saved your stuff. You had no right to interfere. This came from something that looked like a floating brain in a glass tank. Jake shrugged. People were going to get hurt. I could not just watch that happen. The council members talked among themselves in different alien languages. Jake waited patiently, rocking back and forth on his feet, like he was waiting for a bus. After several minutes, Chancellor ZYXTHRA spoke again. Jake Morrison, this council finds you guilty of all charges. The penalty for your crimes is usually death. She paused, and her crystal body turned a satisfied purple. However, we have decided on a different punishment, one that will serve as a warning to other humans who think they can ignore our laws. Jake raised his eyebrows. Oh, what did you have in mind? Exile, the Chancellor said. Permanent exile to Kethmoran Prime. The other council members made various sounds of approval. Some clicked, others whistled, and the brain thing made a sound like static electricity. They all seemed very pleased with themselves. Jake looked confused. I am sorry, I have never heard of that place. Where is Kethmoran Prime? It is a world in the far reaches of the outer spiral, said the spider creature. A world so dangerous that even our worst criminals beg for death rather than be sent there. The Chancellor's colors became bright and cheerful. The gravity is 3 times what your species is used to. The air pressure will crush your lungs. Every day, radiation storms sweep across the surface, killing everything in their path. The temperature changes from freezing cold to burning hot several times each day, added another council member who looked like a tree with too many arms. The plants release poison gas. The animals hunt in groups and use tools to kill their prey. Sounds rough, Jake said, but he did not look scared. No ship has ever returned from that world. The brain thing said with satisfaction. No rescue will come for you. You will die there, alone and forgotten. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled. So let me make sure I understand this. You are sending me to a planet with interesting weather, challenging wildlife, and no other people around to bother me. The council members looked at each other. This was not the reaction they expected. It is a death sentence, Chancellor ZYXTHRA said slowly. You will not survive 1 week on that world. Huh. Jake looked thoughtful. Does this planet have any oceans or rivers? I really enjoy fishing. Fishing? The tree creature's branches shook with confusion. You are concerned about fishing? Well, sure. If I am going to be there for a while, I want to know if there are fish to catch. I brought my fishing gear with me when they arrested me. Can I take it along? The council members started talking to each other again, but louder this time. They seemed upset that Jake was not begging for mercy or trying to escape. Chancellor ZYXTHRA held up one crystal hand for silence. Human, do you not understand? This world will kill you. The gravity alone will crush your bones. The radiation will cook your flesh. The predators will tear you apart and eat you while you still live. Jake nodded seriously. That does sound challenging. But you know, I grew up in Alaska. We had some pretty tough wildlife there too. Bears, wolves, that sort of thing. And I spent 2 years on the ice planet Fenris during the war. That place tried to kill me every single day. He grinned. Made me stronger. This is not the same thing, the spider creature said, waving all 8 legs. Kethmoran Prime is beyond dangerous. It is impossible. You know what they told me when I wanted to climb Mount McKinley back on Earth? They said it was impossible too. Jake's smile got bigger. Turned out to be one of the best weeks of my life. The floating brain made angry static noises. You cannot be serious. You are treating this like it is some kind of vacation. Jake's eyes lit up. You know what? You are absolutely right. It has been way too long since I had a real vacation. No meetings, no paperwork, no politicians telling me what I can and cannot do. He looked up at the Chancellor. Thank you. This is exactly what I needed. Chancellor ZYX's crystal body went through several colors before settling on a confused yellow. You're thanking us? Oh, yes. I was getting tired of all this galactic politics stuff anyway. A nice quiet planet where I can just focus on survival and exploration? Perfect. Jake looked around at all the council members. When do I leave? Immediately, the Chancellor said, though she sounded much less confident than before. Great. Can I stop by my ship first to get my camping gear? And my fishing rod? The council members looked at each other like they had made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to change their minds now. The sentence had been given, and the whole galaxy was watching. 2 hours later, Jake Morrison was loaded onto a prisoner transport ship, heading toward the most dangerous planet in known space. He spent the trip organizing his survival kit and reading old fishing magazines. The transport ship dropped Jake's small survival pod toward Kethmoran Prime like it was getting rid of garbage. The pod shook and rattled as it hit the thick atmosphere, and warning lights flashed red all around him. Most people would have been terrified. Jake was humming an old camping song his grandfather taught him. Landing in 30 seconds, the ship's computer said in a bored voice, "Atmospheric pressure is crushing levels. Radiation levels are deadly. Surface temperature is minus 60 degrees and rising fast. Good luck." "Thanks," Jake said, checking his gear one more time. "You have been very helpful." The pod hit the ground hard, bounced twice, and came to rest against a large rock. Jake waited a minute for everything to stop moving, then popped the hatch. Cold air rushed in, along with the smell of something like sulfur and wet metal. "Not too bad," Jake said, stepping outside. The gravity hit him like a heavy backpack, but he had trained in high gravity before. His legs felt like they were made of lead, but he could handle it. The landscape looked like someone had taken Earth and made it angry. Red rocks stuck up from purple dirt. Strange trees with black leaves grew in twisted shapes. In the distance, Jake could see mountains that glowed with their own light. The sky was dark green with 3 small moons hanging in it. Jake looked around and nodded. Yep, this will do just fine. 10,000 miles away, Lieutenant Commander Amy Chun sat in the monitoring station, watching Jake through satellites and hidden cameras. She had been assigned to observe the human's exile and report when he died. Her bosses expected that to happen within hours. Amy was not human, but she had worked with humans before. She found them interesting, if sometimes crazy. She watched Jake walk around his crashed pod, picking up rocks and sniffing the air like he was shopping for a new house. "Subject is mobile," she said into her recorder. "No signs of distress from gravity or atmospheric pressure. Beginning first day observations." Jake found a spot between 2 large rocks that blocked the wind. He pulled pieces from his broken pod and started building a shelter. The metal was heavy in the high gravity, but Jake worked slowly and steadily. He hummed while he worked, stopping every few minutes to look around and smile. "This is nice," Jake said to himself. No traffic, no crowds, no meetings. A bird-like creature with too many wings flew overhead, screaming like a fire alarm. Even the local wildlife has personality. By noon, the temperature had climbed to over 100 degrees. Jake took off his jacket and kept working. He found a small stream nearby and tested the water. It tasted like metal, but his portable filter cleaned it up just fine. Subject has located water source, Amy reported. He appears to be enjoying himself. That afternoon, Jake met his first serious challenge. A pack of creatures that looked like wolves crossed with lizards surrounded his camp. They had scales instead of fur, teeth like broken glass, and claws that could cut through metal. They moved in a circle around Jake, making clicking sounds to each other. Jake stood very still and watched them. Well, hello there, neighbors. You folks live around here. The pack leader, bigger than the others, stepped forward and snarled. Poison dripped from its fangs. Ah, I see. This is your territory, and I am the new guy. Jake slowly reached for his pack and pulled out a chunk of dried meat from his rations. Maybe we can work something out. He threw the meat to the pack leader. The creature sniffed it, then ate it in one bite. It looked at Jake with what might have been surprise. Good stuff, right? I have got more where that came from, but you will have to let me stay here in exchange. Jake threw out more pieces to the other pack members. Fair trade. Amy watched in amazement as the deadly predators ate Jake's food and then just left. They did not attack. They did not try to eat him. They took his food and walked away like they had made a business deal. Subject has negotiated with local predators, she reported. This is not in any of the textbooks. On his third day, Jake had his shelter finished and a fire going. He had caught fish from the stream using a hook made from pod debris and line from his emergency kit. The fish were purple and had too many fins, but they tasted pretty good when cooked. A massive storm hit that night. Lightning struck the ground every few seconds, and wind tried to blow everything away. The rain came down like someone was dumping buckets from the sky. Jake sat in his shelter, dry and warm, cooking fish and reading a book. This is better than cable TV, he said, watching lightning flash outside. Amy's reports were getting stranger every day. Her supervisor called her on the fourth day. Chun, are you sure your equipment is working? These reports make it sound like the human is on vacation. Sir, I have checked everything 3 times. The human appears to be treating this exile as, well, as a vacation. That is impossible. Kethmoran Prime kills everything that lands on it. Sir, yesterday he built a fishing rod from local materials and caught enough food for a week. He also started making some kind of calendar from rocks. I think he is planning to stay for a long time. By the end of the first week, Jake had mapped the area around his camp, identified 12 different types of plants that were safe to eat, and figure out the pattern of the daily storms. He had also made friends with a small creature that looked like a cross between a squirrel and a dragon. He called it Pete. Morning, Pete, Jake said, sharing his breakfast with the little creature. What do you say we explore those mountains today? I want to see what is over there. Pete made a happy chirping sound and climbed onto Jake's shoulder. Amy filed her weekly report with growing confusion. Subject shows no signs of stress or distress. Has established sustainable food and water sources. Has begun exploring beyond his initial landing site. Appears to be in excellent health and spirits. Her supervisor's response came back within an hour. Check your equipment again. This cannot be accurate. But it was accurate. Jake Morrison was not just surviving on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. He was having the time of his life. That night, as Jake sat by his fire with Pete sleeping on his lap, he looked up at the strange green sky and smiled. You know what, Pete? I think I am going to like it here. 2 months into his stay on Kethmoran Prime, Jake had settled into a comfortable routine. He woke up with the first sun, checked his fish traps, and planned his day's exploration. Pete had grown bigger and now helped Jake find new places to explore. The little dragon squirrel was smart and seemed to understand when Jake was looking for something specific. Jake had built a better shelter using rocks and metal from his pod. He had also made tools from local materials, including a really good knife from some kind of volcanic glass he found near the mountains. His daily life was peaceful, which is why he was surprised when Pete started acting nervous. What is wrong, buddy? Jake asked, watching his small friend pace back and forth. Pete kept looking toward the forest and making worried clicking sounds. That afternoon, Jake found out what Pete's so upset. He was checking his fish traps when the ground started shaking. Not like an earthquake, but like something very big was walking nearby. Jake looked up to see trees falling down in a straight line, heading right toward him. "Well, that is new," Jake said, grabbing his spear and backing away from the stream. What came out of the forest was the biggest living thing Jake had ever seen. It looked like someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a tank and then made it angry. The creature was 15 feet tall and 30 feet long, covered in thick armor plates that looked like metal shields. Its head was mostly mouth, filled with teeth the size of baseball bats. Poison dripped from spikes along its back. Amy Chin watched from her monitoring station as the apex predator of Kethmoran Prime approached a human. Every other creature on the planet ran away from these things. Even the Galactic Council's files called them planet killers. "This is it," Amy said to herself. "This is how the human dies." But Jake did not run. He stood by the stream, holding his spear, and watched the giant creature approach. The beast stopped about 50 feet away and stared at him. Its eyes were intelligent, Jake realized. This was not just a mindless monster. "Hello there, big guy," Jake said calmly. "You're definitely the boss around here, are not you?" The creature made a sound like thunder rolling through the mountains. It took one step forward. Jake held his ground but did not raise a spear. "I am not here to fight you. This is your home, and I respect that. But I would like to share it with you, if that is okay." For almost an hour, human and beast stared at each other. The creature seemed confused. Nothing had ever stood its ground before. Everything either ran or attacked. This small creature just stood there, calm and respectful. Finally, the beast turned around and walked back into the forest. "Good meeting you," Jake called after it. "Hope to see you around." Amy sat in her chair, mouth open. She rewound the recording 3 times to make sure she had seen it correctly. Over the next few weeks, Jake kept running into the giant creature. He started calling it Buddy, even though it could kill him with one bite. Each time they met, Jake would stop what he was doing and greet the beast politely. Sometimes he would share his food, tossing fish or fruit in Buddy's direction. "Subject continues to interact peacefully with apex predator," Amy reported. "I do not understand how this is possible." Buddy seemed to enjoy the attention. The massive creature would sometimes follow Jake around at a distance, like a curious cat. When Jake was fishing, Buddy would lie down nearby and watch. When Jake was exploring, Buddy would clear a path through thick vegetation. One day, while Jake was climbing rocks near the mountains, his foot slipped. He fell 20 feet and landed hard on his left leg. Pain shot through him, and he knew the leg was broken. "Well, this is not good," Jake said, looking at his leg bent the wrong way. He was too far from his shelter to crawl back, and night was coming. The temperature would drop below freezing, and there were predators that hunted in the dark. Jake started dragging himself toward a cave he had seen earlier, but progress was slow and painful. That is when Buddy showed up. The giant creature looked at Jake's injured leg and made a soft rumbling sound. It lowered its massive head and gently pushed Jake with its snout. "What are you doing, Buddy?" Jake asked. The creature kept pushing until Jake understood. Buddy wanted him to climb onto its back. "Are you serious?" Jake looked up at the armored beast. "You want to give me a ride?" Buddy made the rumbling sound again and lay down so Jake could climb up. It took some work with his broken leg, but Jake managed to get on top of the creature's back, holding onto the armor plates. Buddy stood up carefully and walked back to Jake's shelter, moving slowly so Jake would not fall off. When they arrived, the creature lay down again so Jake could climb off. "Thank you," Jake said, patting Buddy's enormous head. "You are a good friend." Amy filed a report that night that her supervisors refused to believe. Subject has formed cooperative relationship with apex predator. Creature appears to be protecting and assisting the human. While Jake's leg healed over the next month, Buddy stayed close to the shelter. The giant creature brought Jake food, including fruits from high in the mountains that Jake could not reach. When other predators came too close, Buddy would chase them away with earth-shaking roars. During this time, Jake also made an important discovery. While exploring caves near his shelter, He found ruins from an ancient civilization. The walls were covered with writing and pictures that told the story of people who had lived on this planet long ago. Jake studied the ruins every day, learning about the planet's history. The ancient people had not seen Kethmoran Prime as a death world. They had lived here for thousands of years, working with the planet instead of fighting against it. Their records showed the best places to find food, how to predict the weather patterns, and even how to communicate with the local wildlife. No wonder they thought this place was dangerous. Jake said to Pete, who was translating some of the simpler pictures for him. They were trying to fight the planet instead of living with it. The ruins became Jake's library and workshop. He learned to make better tools using techniques from the ancient people. He discovered which plants could be used for medicine and which ones made the best building materials. Most importantly, he learned about the seasonal patterns that controlled weather and animal behavior. When Jake's leg was fully healed, he showed Buddy around the ruins. The giant creature seemed interested in the old pictures, especially ones that showed creatures that looked like Buddy working alongside the ancient people. Your ancestors were friends with the people who lived here, Jake told Buddy. I guess you remember that, even if your people do not live here anymore. Buddy rumbled softly and nuzzled Jake's shoulder. By the end of his 3rd month on Kethmoran Prime, Jake had the best life he had ever known. He had a comfortable home, plenty of food, good friends, and interesting things to explore every day. He had almost forgotten that this was supposed to be a punishment. Amy's reports were getting more detailed, but also more unbelievable. Her supervisors had stopped responding to most of them. Who would believe that a human was not just surviving, but thriving on the galaxy's most dangerous planet? That was about to change. The Galactic Council had decided to send someone to check on Jake Morrison personally. They wanted to make sure he was really dead, so they could close his case forever. Commander Ryan Cole read Amy Chen's latest report for the 3rd time and shook his head. According to the monitoring officer, the human exile had not only survived 6 months on Kethmoran Prime, but had somehow turned a section of the Death World into what she called a thriving homestead. Cole's bosses of the Galactic Council wanted him to go check this personally and hopefully find Jake Morrison's bones. This is ridiculous, Cole said to the science officer, Dr. Lisa Parker. No one survives on that planet. The radiation alone should have killed him in the 1st week. Dr. Parker looked at the readings from Amy's monitors. The data seems accurate, sir. And look at these biological scans. He appears to be in perfect health. Then the equipment is broken. Cole turned to his security chief, Danny Rodriguez. Get a team ready. We are going down to collect what is left of the human and close this case. The council ship arrived at Kethmoran Prime 3 days later. Cole expected to find a dead world with maybe some scattered bones and broken equipment. Instead, his sensors showed a complex settlement with multiple buildings, cultivated fields, and what looked like a communications array. Sir, his pilot said, I am getting a transmission from the surface. Put it through. A cheerful voice filled the bridge. Hey there, you folks looking for a place to land? I have got a nice flat area cleared out just south of my main buildings. Watch out for the purple flowers, though. They will make you sneeze. Cole stared at the communication panel. Who is this? Jake Morrison. I am guessing you are here to check up on me? Amy told me someone might come by eventually. You're alive. Cole could not hide the surprise in his voice. Very much so. Come on down. I will put some coffee on. An hour later, Cole's team stood at the edge of Jake's settlement, staring in amazement. What they saw looked like a cross between a farm, a research station, and a nature preserve. Jake had built several structures from local stone and metal, connected by covered walkways that protected against radiation storms. Gardens full of local plants grew in organized rows. A weather station made from salvaged ship parts tracked the daily storms. And everywhere, there were animals. Pete the dragon squirrel sat on Jake's shoulder, chattering at the visitors. A pack of the razor wolves that first threatened Jake now lounged around the settlement like guard dogs. Several bird-like creatures with rainbow feathers flew between the buildings, and in the distance, Buddy could be seen lying in the shade of a large tree. Jake himself looked like he had never been healthier. His hair was longer and he had grown a neat beard, but his clothes were clean and well made from local materials. He wore a vest made from some kind of scaled hide and boots that looked handcrafted but sturdy. "Welcome to paradise," Jake said, spreading his arms wide. "You are just in time for lunch." Dr. Parker walked around the settlement with her instruments, taking readings. "This is impossible," she said. "The radiation levels here should be lethal." "Oh, that?" Jake pointed to several tall poles around the area. "Those crystals I found in the caves naturally absorb radiation. Set up enough of them, and they create a safe zone. The ancient people who lived here figured that out thousands of years ago." "Ancient people?" Cole looked around. "What ancient people?" Jake led them to the ruins he had discovered. The cave system had been expanded and turned into a combination workshop, library, and museum. The walls were covered with translated text and detailed drawings of the planet's ecosystem. The folks who originally lived here called themselves the Keth. They lived on this planet for about 5,000 years before something made them leave. Jake showed them stone tablets covered in writing. They left behind everything they knew about surviving here. Danny Rodriguez, the security chief, picked up one of Jake's handmade tools. It was a cutting blade made from volcanic glass with a handle wrapped in some kind of leather. "You made this?" "Had to. My original equipment broke down after a few months. But these local materials are actually better than what I brought with me." Jake showed them weapons, tools, and household items, all crafted from things found on the planet. "Everything you need is here if you know where to look." Dr. Parker was studying Jake's gardens. "These plants should be toxic to humans. Most of them are, in their natural form. But if you process them correctly, they are not only safe but nutritious." The Keth left detailed instructions. Jake picked a fruit that looked like a purple apple. "This tastes like chocolate and has more protein than meat." Cole was having trouble accepting what he saw. But the predators, the weather, the gravity. The gravity is great exercise. The weather is predictable once you understand the patterns. And the predators. Jake whistled, and Buddy lifted his enormous head from across the settlement. "They are just animals trying to survive, like everything else. Treat them with respect, and they will treat you the same way." Cole's team spent 3 days at Jake's settlement. They watched him work with animals that should have killed him. They ate food grown in soil that should have been poisonous. They slept in buildings that stayed comfortable despite radiation storms and temperature swings. On their second night, they got to see Jake's early warning system in action. Seismic sensors he had built from ship parts detected underground activity before it reached the surface. Volcanic vents that could kill anything caught in their path were predicted hours before they opened. "Major seismic event coming," Jake announced, checking his instruments. "Everyone to the caves. This is going to be a big one." Cole's team followed Jake and his animals into the cave system, which had been reinforced with local materials and stocked with supplies. Through openings in the rock, they watched as the surface of the planet turned into a hellscape of lava flows and poisonous gas. "This happens about once a month," Jake explained calmly. "Usually lasts 6 to 8 hours. Good time to catch up on reading." Dr. Parker stared at the destruction outside. "How did you survive your first one of these?" "Buddy showed me where to hide. Animals always know when bad weather is coming." As if hearing his name, the massive creature moved closer to Jake and made his rumbling purr sound. Pete climbed down from Jake's shoulder and curled up against Buddy's huge head. "They like each other," Jake said. "Pete thinks Buddy is his big brother." When the seismic event ended, Jake's settlement was untouched. His early warning systems and reinforced buildings had protected everything perfectly. "I need to report this to the council," Cole said on their last morning. "Sure thing. Tell them I said hello." Jake was packing supplies for an exploring trip to the northern mountains. "Oh!" and asked them if they have any books on geology. "I am trying to figure out if there are any other mineral deposits around here." "Books on geology," Cole repeated weakly. "Yeah, I mean, this place has amazing potential for mining and research. Someone should set up a proper science station here." Jake looked thoughtful. "Actually, that gives me an idea." Cole's team left Keth Moran Prime with recording samples and detailed reports that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about death worlds and human survival. But more importantly, they left with the knowledge that Jake Morrison was not just surviving his exile. He was planning for the future. That night, as their ship traveled back toward Galactic Council space, Cole sat at his quarters writing his report. How do you explain to people that their ultimate punishment had become someone's dream home? Back on the planet's surface, Jake sat by his evening fire with Pete on one shoulder and Buddy lying nearby. He looked up at the strange green sky and smiled. You know what, friends? I think it is time we had some more company around here. 1 year after Jake Morrison had been exiled to Kethmoran Prime, the Galactic Council met again in their great chamber. Chancellor ZYX's crystal body glowed with satisfied colors as she prepared to officially declare the human dead and close his file forever. Members of the Council, she announced, we are here to finalize the case of Jake Morrison. Our monitoring has confirmed that no life signs have been detected from Kethmoran Prime for several months. This was not exactly true. Amy Chin had stopped filing regular reports after her supervisors refused to believe them. She had been transferred to a monitoring station in a quiet part of the galaxy where nothing interesting was supposed to happen. Finally, said the spider creature, we can put this embarrassment behind us. The human's death will serve as a warning to the species, added the floating brain. They will think twice before challenging our authority again. Chancellor ZYX was about to officially close the case when alarms started going off all over the chamber. The main communication screen flickered to life, showing an incoming transmission from Kethmoran Prime. Impossible, the Chancellor whispered. The screen cleared to show Jake Morrison sitting in what looked like a comfortable office. His hair was longer now and streaked with gray, and he had a full beard. He wore a shirt made from local materials that looked both practical and stylish. Behind him, large windows showed a thriving settlement with multiple buildings, green gardens, and creatures moving around peacefully. Hello, Chancellor ZYX, members of the Council. Jake smiled and waved. I hope everyone is doing well. The Council chamber erupted in shocked voices, speaking a dozen different languages. Several members fell off their floating platforms. You are supposed to be dead, the brain thing screeched. Death has been greatly exaggerated, Jake said cheerfully. I am actually calling to thank you all for the best year of my life. Pete climbed into view and perched on Jake's shoulder. The little dragon squirrel had grown larger, and his scales were now a beautiful blue-green color. Behind them, Buddy's massive head appeared in one of the windows, looking at the transmission with curious eyes. What is that thing? The tree creature asked, pointing at Pete. This is Pete, my assistant, and that big guy in the window is Buddy. They help me run the place. Jake reached up to scratch Pete's head. We have made a lot of friends here. Chancellor ZYX found her voice. This is not possible. Kethmoran Prime kills everything that lands on it. Well, that is actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Jake leaned forward in his chair. I have spent the last year studying this planet, and it turns out your information was not very accurate. Jake stood up and walked to a large wall display covered with charts, graphs, and images. Kethmoran Prime is not a death world. It is actually one of the most stable and life-friendly planets I have ever seen. It just requires the right approach. He pointed to weather charts. The storms follow predictable patterns. The radiation can be easily managed with local materials. The gravity makes you stronger. The temperature changes are actually helpful for preserving food and managing water supplies. But the predators, the spider creature protested. They are deadly killing machines. They are intelligent animals protecting their territory. Once you establish that you are not a threat, they are actually quite friendly. Jake whistled, and Buddy pushed his head closer to the window. Buddy here has saved my life several times. Dr. Parker appeared on screen next to Jake. The biological diversity on this planet is incredible. We have identified over 3,000 species that could be useful for medicine, agriculture, or industry. Dr. Parker? Cole's voice came from off-screen. Is that really you? Hello, Commander Cole. Yes, I requested a transfer here after our visit. This planet is a scientist's dream. More people appeared in the background of Jake's transmission. Amy Chin walked by carrying what looked like research equipment. Danny Rodriguez was visible through another window, teaching a group of children how to safely approach some of the smaller creatures. How many humans are on that planet? Chancellor ZYX demanded. Right now we have about 50 adults and 20 children. Jake said, all volunteers. Word got out about what we were doing here, and people started asking if they could join us. The council members started talking at once, their voices rising in panic. This is illegal, the brain thing shouted. You cannot establish a colony without our permission. Jake held up his hand for quiet. Actually, I can. According to Galactic Law Section 12, Subsection 47, any person exiled to an unclaimed world has a right to establish territorial claim if they survive for 1 standard year. He pulled out a legal document. I have been here for exactly 1 year and 1 day. Keth Moran Prime is now officially claimed by humanity as our first colonial world outside Earth space. You cannot be serious, the Chancellor said, her crystal body shifting to angry red colors. I am completely serious. In fact, I have prepared a formal presentation for you. Jake touched the control, and the transmission expanded to show a detailed overview of his settlement. The council watched in growing horror as Jake showed them everything he had built. There were farms producing food that could feed thousands of people, mines extracting rare minerals, research facilities studying local plants and animals, manufacturing centers making tools and equipment from local materials. The economic potential here is enormous, Jake explained. We estimate that Keth Moran Prime could support a population of over 1 million people within 50 years. The mineral deposits alone are worth more than most entire star systems. But it is a death world, the tree creature said weakly. That is just marketing. Jake said with a grin, we prefer to call it challenging but rewarding. In fact, we are thinking of opening it up to tourism. Adventure seekers would pay a lot of money for a real survival experience. The council members looked at each other in defeat. They had tried to kill Jake Morrison by sending him to the most dangerous planet they knew. Instead, they had given humanity its greatest colonial success. The first transport ship with new colonists arrives next week. Jake continued. We already have a waiting list of over 5,000 people who want to move here. Chancellor ZY tried one last time. The Galactic Council will never recognize your claim to that world. Actually, you do not have a choice. The law is clear, and it is your law. Jake's smile became less friendly. Unless you want to admit that you sent me here to die, which would be illegal under your own rules about prisoner treatment. The Chancellor's crystal body went completely clear, which meant she was too shocked to change colors. So, Jake continued, I am formally requesting that Keth Moran Prime be recognized as humanity's first official colonial world. I am also applying for membership in the Galactic Commerce Union, so we can start trading with other worlds. The transmission ended with Jake waving goodbye, Pete chirping happily, and Buddy making his rumbling purr sound in the background. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, the members started leaving without saying anything. There was nothing left to discuss. 6 months later, Jake stood on a hill overlooking New Terra, the main settlement of humanity's newest colony. The town had grown to over 500 people, with more arriving every week. Children played safely in parks where creatures that were once thought deadly now served as protective guardians. Scientists worked alongside engineers to unlock the secrets of a planet that had once been considered impossible. Amy Chin joined him on the hill, carrying her latest research notes. The council officially recognized our colonial status yesterday, she said. Good for them. How are the new families settling in? Very well. The Johnson kids have already made friends with a pack of razor wolves. Mrs. Garcia started a garden club with some of the other mothers. Amy looked out over the growing town. Jake, do you ever miss Earth? Jake thought about it for a moment. Pete was sleeping on his shoulder, and Buddy was visible in the distance, playing with some of the human children who were not afraid of the massive creature. Earth will always be home, Jake said finally, but this is home too. Maybe home is not about where you are, but about making the best of where you end up. A ship appeared in the sky, bringing another load of colonists ready to start new lives on humanity's first colonial world. Jake watched it land and smiled. The Galactic Council had tried to punish him by sending him to a death world. Instead, they had given him the chance to build something amazing. Come on, Pete, Jake said, heading down the hill toward a landing pad. Let us go welcome our new neighbors to paradise.